All right, let's call the Monday, September 11th, 2023 Town Council meeting to order. Roll call shows that all councilors are present. All right, second item on our agenda is agenda review. We have a note to consider amending our agenda to include the following items. I'll start with the first is order 23-179. Order authorizing the town manager to pay the Orono Economic Development Corporation a dedicated donation of $9,500 for the Caribou Bog Outdoor Center with funds drawn from the approved fiscal year 24 Parks and Recreation Department operating budget. Shall we take these individually or collectively as agenda adjustments?
Yeah, you can take.
We can do them both together.
Actually, I would do them each separately.
Let's do them individually. Okay.
To add to the agenda.
Yes. So this is just to add this item to the agenda. I'd entertain a motion.
I would move to add this item to the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous to add order 23-179. The second agenda adjustment is to add order 23-180, order appointing Councilor Rob Laraway to chair of the Council Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee.
I move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Okay, and so order 23-180 is also added to our agenda. Next item is approval of minutes of July 10th and July 31st, 2023. Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Sarah seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Minutes are approved. Okay, we'll entertain our first session of public comment. If anybody wishes to make a public comment, if they could please come to the microphone, make sure they hit the button, the green light goes on, and they identify themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Lapointe. I'm the sole owner of Lapointe Enterprises, Inc. We have a terrible thing that has just been discovered. You yourselves are mandatory reporters. There has been a very serious issue that has not been reported. My brother Jim has a disability and has had this for many years, from what I'm understanding. We have just recently discovered this. The unfortunate thing is that now you are being asked to contract based upon this elder abuse and this abuse of a disabled person. I have reported this to the Enforcement Division in the Bureau of Motor Vehicle because the licensing resides with them. It is co-shared between Orono and there. The criteria is contractual. The contractual is steeped in Maine statute 698 A2D1059. That's Maine statute. The Maine Supreme Court 185, 1997, ME 185 is where it was decided. The lower cases, which had the grandfathering and the fact that you are not supposed to amend things, and that the old laws apply back to 61 is 94 LU 007. We have information now which we have put in the probate system. I have applied for guardian and conservator for my brother James. I love my brother James, but he has been abused financially. People are going into his room. He's in 601 St. Joseph's for an extended stay, almost maybe 8 months now. He has been there before and nobody has been informed. This is a serious thing. I've called the governor's office. I've called the AG's office. I also have the Senator Collins, who was greatly involved with elder abuse and the abuse of disabled people. Now, my brother Jim is disabled. He's been this way for many, many years. this terrible thing that he has, this dementia and this alcohol-related issues. He also has another thing, which is something like encephalitis, but it's not encephalitis. It has a long name. I have the paperwork from the doctor. I have the petitions to the court. I have all this information. I need to tell you that I have never been served for the junkyard to be removed from the junkyard. I'm a very law-abiding person, but I was thoroughly confused. The second thing that has happened is notification. Here, I stand today without any knowledge that this is before the council. And I want to point out something. The way this is, and this is indeed a truth, and you guys are of truth. I have no problem. There is some minor things here, but we could work this out. This says that on this agenda, LaPointe's, let's see if I can find it here. What is the order that you have? First, you have the discussion. And that has to do with LaPointe's Enterprises, Inc.
It may be order 23-159.
Yes, ma'am. But we have here at the public hearings, we need to consider this automobile graveyard and our junkyard permit for LaPointe's Enterprises, Inc., 201 Kelly Road. Now, you can't amend things. You can't tell me I can't be on the property. And then you say over here to my brother Michael, because he comes forward and he says that he's representative for the estate of Perry LaPointe. I actually have paperwork that says that that's not true. And I wish to tell you today that this is the only person in this room that owns LaPointe Enterprises, Inc. is me. I own this. Now, the difficulty before the judge and Judge Blaisdell down at the probate court is very, very unhappy. We have a whole list of what is called 2014-797 is the case in probate in Penobscot County. There has been so many things altered in that probate that just absolutely has to be swept out. We have a secondary thing.
Dan, I'm going to interrupt you for one moment.
One moment, yes, sir, but I'm
are gonna have
informing
time-
you, sir, I'm
We'll have
informing
time
you.
to talk about this specific issue in our public hearing.
Well, that sounds good, but I'm informing you ahead of
Okay.
time that there's serious issues here. And the other thing that's down in probate is my brother's incapacity. It went from Penobscot, it went to Hancock. The same thing with my father's case, which is 2014-797, went to Hancock. That is 2016-368. It is now called 2023-211. Jimmy's is called 2023-212. Before that, in Penobscot, and Brandomir was incensed, but they shut him down. He had to send that out. We don't know what happened there,
Yep.
but I could tell
Dan,
you that the
I'm gonna
previous judges
Advise the
were all-
council that you have provided the town with significant paperwork that we can review.
Well, I have more
And-
paperwork, and sir, I cannot provide for you exactly because they do not notify me. And that's why I stand here today without this. Now, I'm grandfathered by Maine state statute, and I stand before you grandfathered.
I'm not trying to cut off your public comment.
I
This
understand.
Initial public comment time is for residents to speak on items that are not on our agenda. So we
Okay,
will have
very
an
good.
opportunity to
Thank you
talk.
very much. I wish to alert you to this because elder abuse, Orono does not partake in at all. You do not take in abuse of an elderly. You do not take in abuse of a disabled person. Both things have occurred here, and this is very, very vexing. And I stand as the sole owner of LaPointe's Enterprises, Inc. and the properties that were returned to me on the first part of 2022 by the judge in probate. We will be deciding that this month and next month, and these hearings are ongoing now.
Thank you very much. Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there other public comment on items not on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm Bob Sinclair, resident. I heard something concerning the other day. I thought I'd just come to council to get some clarification on it, but I guess I just need to ask a question. Has the town recently settled some kind of a case or a complaint against a former involving a former employee of the town with the Human Rights Commission, allegedly for discrimination and retaliation? Is that true?
Sure, Bob, there are public documents available that describe the settlement that the town entered into. The town council is precluded by that settlement from speaking on the matter, although all the documents are public record. So can we offer more comment on that?
Where could I find the documents? I'm just curious.
Yeah, are the documents,
If you make a request, a follow-up request, which all you have to do is say you want them, I can shoot them to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would I make that in writing or? I'd like them.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. That's concerning, but
So do we characterize this as, this is not a settlement with the Maine Human Rights Commission. This is a settlement with a particular individual and the town.
Yeah, nothing actually was finalized in the Human Rights Commission.
That's right. Okay. But we will have all that paperwork. Well,
okay, thanks.
is there other public comment? Seeing none, we'll open public hearing. Public hearing A, to consider a victualer's license for the following businesses. Brewers of the North doing business as Aroma Joe's, 99 Park Street, Harvest Moon LLC, 18 Mill Street, Big Shoe Incorporated doing business as Subway, 53 Main Street, Big Shoe Incorporated doing business as Subway, 10 Stillwater Street.
Hello, Patrick Estee, Code Enforcement Officer. My recommendations are also based off of police, fire, and our town clerk. And all paperwork has been received. Our inspections have been completed, and we are recommending approval.
Is there any public comment on this hearing? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into public hearing B. A victualer's license for FWOB LLC, a food truck located at 56 Main Street.
We are asking for a conditional license. They had some mechanical issues that they took it off site, and then they weren't here in time for me to do my inspection. If we could have a conditional license, and after we do our inspections, we would give that approval.
If I could just clarify, what we're looking for is conditional approval
Thank you.
of the license, which the condition is that they pass the code officer's inspection.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you. Right. Any comment from council or the public on this hearing, hearing B? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to hearing C. A class 3 wine and class 4 malt liquor license, special amusement permit for music, dancing and entertainment, and victualer's license from Million Dreams LLC, doing business as Black Bear Cinemas, 6 Stillwater Avenue.
And we are recommending approval. We have completed our inspection and asking for approval.
Any comment from council or public in this hearing? Okay, seeing none. Let's move into hearing D, to consider an automobile graveyard and/or junkyard permit for LaPointe Enterprises Incorporated, 201 Kelly Road.
I'm gonna just step in to say, the town staff actually was aware that there are some disputes here, reached out to the town attorney, who confirmed for us that the heirs of Perry LaPointe are the owners of the property pursuant to a court order. That court order may in fact be re-adjudicated through the courts. That the junkyard that we have, the application we have on file is for the heirs. The first thing that council needs to do when they are thinking about issuing a junkyard license is the only individuals that they can go be issued to are individuals with right title or interest. When courts speak and give court orders, town staff and councils are required to kind of follow those court orders. That is not saying or taking a side in the dispute that's currently here. It's simply saying a judge spoke and made a decision. I have not received any paperwork that would tell me that the personal representatives of the junkyard or 201 Kelly Road has changed. The ownership has changed. The individual or individuals that are allowed to reside there has changed through the court system. When we look at this particular junkyard, the license is set to expire. So if we table this until the dispute is settled, we actually will put the junkyard in violation, and under state statute, every day it's not licensed, it's $100 a day fine. So at this point, it would seem prudent, and the lawyer agrees, that we should be issuing this based on the individual that the courts have determined has right title and interest in the property. And if that changes, then we can come back through this process at a later date.
I did read it. You want to go first? Okay. If the court changes its mind or finds another finding, will the license that we approved tonight go with the property to this gentleman or whoever the court decides?
So at this point, it's always been LaPointe Enterprises doing business at 201 Kelly Road. That is what we license. The junkyard at this place, we have undergone all of the inspections and it looks better. I've seen pictures. It looks great. We have been under a consent agreement of sorts, a verbal agreement to make progress in cleaning up the junkyard, and we've been doing I think a good job with that. Well, I haven't done any of it. I wouldn't say we, I would say the folks who are running it right now. But it stays with LaPointe Enterprises. So if the court changes ownership of LaPointe Enterprises or the individuals who can reside there, then the license will flow with that. If anybody in the future decides to change the name of the entity or create a different entity to run it, they would have to go through the process of determining right title or interest and come back through this process to get another license if LaPointe Enterprises was not going to be the entity that runs it. But I would just say we are not in a position to weigh in on a civil matter in terms of determining who should own a piece of property, especially one that the court has already issued an order for.
Thank you.
And so staff has received all the paperwork and I've done my inspections. And yes, it does look very good out there. So what we've agreed on is every year there'll be something complete going forward to be in compliance with our ordinance. So the junkyard material that's close to the property line has been removed from the property line. And I've already been given what's going to be done for next year. So there's just some goals set every year. I'll go out and inspect it. And so staff is recommending approval.
Thank you. Is there other comment from council?
Thanks. When you talk about this multi-year remediation plan, it sounds like you have.
Yes.
Are there concerns that neighbors to the property have about things that need to be addressed that aren't up to code or?
So I have received complaints from neighbors in the past. Recently, we have not received complaints. And because of the hard work that was put in to remove stuff from the property line, I have not received a complaint in just about a year.
Okay, so if we approve this, are people aware that there's a remediation plan? That may be hard, but do you communicate that kind of thing to people when they complain or?
Yes.
Okay,
I do.
all
Yep.
right. Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate the good work.
Mr. LaPointe?
I'm Daniel Lapointe. I own Lapointe's Enterprises, Inc. And again, I stand before you as last year that notice and information was not sent to me. You do have some serious problems here. And even the year before that, your computer system ends at 2015. We go way before 2015. I appreciate very much the council taking this stance that whoever is the owner is the one, and it has to be decided in the courts. Probate is an interesting place to be, and that's where we find ourselves. But the recent things where my brother has been incapacitated, incapable, unable to do what he was put into place of doing, my father wanted me to be personal representative for the estate. We have, for whatever reason, they put my brother James. He's not up to the task. He never was up to the task. He has health issues that were hidden. And that health issues are where we find ourselves today with great alarm. I really appreciate the continuity because the council has repeatedly said this business is of great value to the community. But we do have a contract, and that contract exists prior. Now that other things have happened, I think we have to take that in stride, but the grandfathering and the law case, the 94 LU 007 has been all the way litigated and contracted, and that is grandfathered all the way back to 61. That is grandfathered to not amend the law. It's the fact that I was told, and I think wrongly, that I have to be on the property because here, to my knowledge, the address of where the mail is sent is 31 Carriage Lane, Holden, Maine. That doesn't, now Mike Sirota for Silvers perhaps doesn't get his mail there. I don't know, but Mike is also a person that doesn't live on the property. Neither do you folks at Taylor Drive. Nobody lives there. So I'm just saying, I think this has to be done the way that you're suggesting, and I will be happy that you do that at this moment, because all of the other issues which are here are really perhaps not your problem, but I think you're handling it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lapointe.
I do have one more thing. We have out of that original case, something that's fairly alarming. There is there was a fine, $70,000. That fine was levied to us. It is in your system as number 43, and it's paid at $100 a month. Basically, right now, it's half paid off. However, the law firm Russell and Uber, he's involved with this. There's been no dispersal of any funds whatsoever through the years. So they have now on us what do you call it? Levied, if you will, a writ of payment for that full $70,000. Half of that resides somewhere in Orono's coffers.
Well,
And I would appreciate very much looking at it. Mr. Uber.
we can have staff update you on that.
Thank
The
you.
immediate issue in front of us is the permitting
Thank you.
issue. Thank you.
We'll try to get this up to date, but again, no information to me. No, and I heard perhaps the license is 200. I have 200. I can write you out a check today, but I like the way you're dealing with this, and I'm going to accept this. And I'm going to say thank you very much, because we bring something to the community very special.
Thank you, Dan.
There's another thing
I'm
with
sorry,
Mr. Uber.
Councilor Berthel.
I just wanted to also extend my sympathies with the process of going through probate court. I know that's really must be a challenge for you and your family.
Thank you. It's the discoveries are very recent here, and it's very alarming. We do have one other thing,
Okay.
which is that a piece
Dan,
of
right now, we
property.
can only discuss the issues related to the ongoing
Well,
permitting.
Lapointe's Enterprises, Inc. has a secondary piece of property. which is the people, the mortgagers that are in there that Orono has signed off with, never had a contract. They went in, they bought it from Pamela Wallace and Fred. They never contracted with Perry and I. So in other words, they stand without contract.
But-
So this is a serious issue that I need to bring to your attention. That is
I
what you
believe you,
needed
you
to
have
know.
shared that issue with.
No, I don't think that very specific
But-
thing has ever been said. But for me to say it today, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Thank
close
you.
this here. All right. Moving on to hearing E, to consider an automobile graveyard and or junkyard permit for the town of Orono off Taylor Road.
Staff has received all paperwork and has completed inspection and is asking for approval.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council or the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to public hearing F. To consider an automobile graveyard and or junkyard permit for Silver's Auto Parts Incorporated, 485 Main Street.
And paperwork is all completed, inspections are completed, and staff is recommending approval.
Any questions or comments from council or the public on this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, we will close public hearings for tonight. Move on to our next item, which is acknowledgements by council members. I'm going to break with our practice slightly. Usually I defer acknowledgements from the chair until the very end, but I want to acknowledge that we have had some significant, or we are having some significant change in our staffing model, and that we are I really want to share my appreciation for the time, service, and professionalism that 3 members of the Orono staff have given us, and that is Bell Ryder, Assistant Town Manager, Kyle Drexler, our Town Planner, and Nancy Ward, the Executive Assistant to the Town Manager. All 3 of these people have given service to the town, which is almost immeasurable in many ways, and I think we would be remiss by not acknowledging their service and to the town and our community. So thank you all. Thanks. That said, let's start with Councilor Powers. If you have any public acknowledgement. We can come back. You can see how this goes when we come back. Okay. Okay. Councilor DeMerit.
I'd like to acknowledge that this is Councilor Power's first council meeting, and that's a good thing. So he'll learn as he goes. But sitting next to me to learn the ropes is probably not the smartest decision. But I'd like to recognize that Julian Bauman's here from the University of Maine. He's with the Student Senate over there, and he attends our meetings and is a liaison. I think that's the right way to put it, between our council and the Student Senate. And it's good to have him here. I'd also like to acknowledge the Basin and the work that we did to have a help host a block party. Taylor and Katie Ashley in particular, but several of us were able to attend that block party at the boat launch a couple weeks ago. It's going to result in a committee meeting coming up in about a week or so of people to talk about re-envisioning what could be done, or a project that could be done at the boat launch for community improvement. And really appreciate everyone coming together and help make that possible. Thank you.
I would just echo Jeff's, those are going to be mine. I know Bell has 11 years, I believe in, and I think Kyle with 5, and Nancy, tell me your number. 22. We're losing a lot, so thank you all.
Well, I just have 2, one related to our new counselor, Powers. Just want to acknowledge all the people who worked on election day to do that process justice. And I would also like to acknowledge the Orono Historical Society, with whom I and Councilor Marks met last week to talk about exciting new projects that the Orono Historical Society might want to take on in the community. So.
I'd like to acknowledge that it is currently Tej, which is a Hindu festival. So happy Tej to all who celebrate. And it's also, we're coming up on Rosh Hashanah. So Shana Tova to those for whom that is a big holiday for you.
I'd like to acknowledge all the students who are back, both at our local schools and at the university. It's wonderful to have all that energy back in the community. I'd like to acknowledge Public Works, who's been doing tremendous amounts of work all around town this summer. Also very specifically, I've heard from quite a few residents lately how promptly they get responses back when they call. Very much appreciated. We have great staff at all levels, but special shout out to Public Works right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on. The next item is consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second.
Seconded.
Could I make an acknowledgement?
Oh, I'm
Now,
sorry.
Skip, no
Yes,
problem.
please.
As most of you know, one of my hobbies is walking around town. And one of the best times to walk around town is when school lets out. Usually you would think not. And I just want to acknowledge the officer who I'm sure Sophie knows the name of, who does the traffic, directs traffic during when school goes in and out. He's phenomenal. I like walking by him because he smiles. Could you tell us his name? The one by the school.
That is our
That's what-
community policing director, Ed Lesky.
Ed Lesky, I just want to say thank you so much for being a positive person in the community and keeping our kids safe. I think that pedestrian safety is a high priority for me. So thank you so much. And I just like walking by you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
All right. So I believe we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Okay. Moving on to new business. First order of new business is order 23-167. Order approving an amendment to the Town of Orono Land Use Ordinances, section 18-106, Schedule of Uses, to reduce the minimum lot area requirement in the commercial 2 district from 40,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet. We need a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Sophie, do you want to?
We should have Kyle Drexler in waiting on Zoom. So just have a little bit of patience. This is Pete's first solo. There we go. He's doing a great job.
There's Kyle.
Hey, everyone, can you hear me?
If you could be a little bit louder, that would be wonderful.
How about now?
Hold on one second. We're checking on our side, Kyle.
Okay. Can you hear me at all? Is it just quiet
that's-
or? Okay,
That's better now.
okay, great. All right, so yeah, thanks for the little bit delay there. So just to give a brief overview, since we missed a month in August where this originally would have gone, this ordinance amendment is to reduce the minimum lot size requirement in the commercial 2 zoning district, which is primarily the area along Park Street, that corridor. The comp plan gave a recommendation to reduce that minimum lot size requirement there in that zone from 40,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet to provide more space and more flexibility there for property owners to make that more of a inviting small scale commercial mixed use capable corridor. Whereas the existing ordinance requirement there really promoted larger lots that lead to less walkability and more driving, which is sort of the opposite of the goal we were looking for there. So hopefully this ordinance is a step in the right direction. It's gone through council committee, planning board public hearing, and council public hearing. So we are at the last stage here, looking for a vote for adoption.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments from the council? Okay, we covered this thoroughly in workshop and in committee meeting. So seeing no questions or comments, let's vote on order 23-167. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, everyone.
Moving on to order 23-168. order approving the traffic calming project proposal and evaluation plan. I believe this is Robbie Erkson. Oh, we need I'm sorry, we need a motion.
I move the resolution or the order.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, move in second. Now. Rob.
Good evening, Rob Yerxa, Public Works Director. So tonight we bring the final draft of the traffic calming plan to council for approval. When we last spoke, some comments that were made wanted me to highlight some of the milestones that included public participation, which we've added in the narrative in a few different places, and also a post-implementation evaluation comment, which is basically the last paragraph of the plan. So the plan, just a quick overview, the plan defines what traffic calming is, gives some examples of what traffic calming measures can be, talks about the initiation of the process, which is a public initiated process. So residents can bring concerns to the town and begin the process of working through the traffic calming evaluation by filling out a quick form that I can help people with if they have questions, and then generating a little bit of support in the neighborhood by getting 5 signatures to support beginning the evaluation process. And I would say that doesn't necessarily mean that you support or don't support traffic calming in your neighborhood, but it means that you would support beginning the process and having it looked at and evaluated. Once that form is in and we take a look and make sure it meets some very minimum requirements that essentially say that the town does actually have authority to take action in the area of concern. We work through the process, do some data collection, hold the first public meeting that would be the information gathering process. So we'd hold a meeting with that neighborhood group where residents could come in and voice their opinions about what the concerns are, what potential solutions they may see may be effective. Then we go through the evaluation process. So there's a number of data points that we'll collect during that process, score that based on a rubric that's provided in the plan. The higher the score, essentially, the more impactful or more, I guess, expensive the responses might be. Breaks it down into 3 tiers that include behavioral, visual, and physical. The physical would be the larger project sizes where we add speed tables, roundabouts, chicanes, things like that. All the way back to behavioral, where we just talk about increased enforcement, education, outreach, those sorts of things. And projects may fall anywhere in that spectrum. Once the decisions have been made at the staff level, we'll take those to another public meeting where we talk about that with the residents that were involved in the first one, and obviously put it out to anyone else who's interested, and have a conversation with town council, who would ultimately make the final decision on what those measures that we would be working to implement. Depending on the size and scope of the project that comes out of this process, there may be a time that we'll have to wait while we work on getting funding for some of these larger scale projects. Or if they're low cost solutions that work, that we think might work, we can start with those right away. So there's kind of a implementation may take a while or may take a week, depending on the size and scope of the project that we decide to implement. Like I said, once implemented, we'll take some time gathering data post implementation to compare it to the initial data that we collect before the implementation, to kind of compare those two and see how impactful the changes were. And then if it's determined that we need to take another step, we can start the process over again. Then after that, we'll keep an ongoing list of these projects as we implement them and revisit them at least once a year. I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from council?
I'm excited about this. I think this is really cool and interesting. My only one concern is that I know a lot of the residents who will be coming asking for traffic calming issues will want to be preventing injury. And one of the biggest scores on this is if a pedestrian has been injured. And I don't know if there will be a way that they can argue for bumping up a score before somebody's injured. That's my only one comment on this particular idea, especially.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We would definitely, so if there are obvious hazards that are presented, once we take a look at the initial, we can jump on those right away. And we can actually, it can be staff initiated as well. So if we see something, if we see that there is an accident or whatever, we can start the process without necessarily beginning with a concern from a resident.
I think we had Dan and then Sonia.
I think this is phenomenal. And I appreciate the work that the town has done right from the start. And I think the Forest Avenue neighborhood probably was maybe the impetus for getting this process going. But I love that there's a criteria, a set of rules that people won't be able to understand, wrap their arms around, a process that people can engage in. I would ask and wonder in the post-implementation evaluation phase, Rob, I really like your letters to construction letters, as you probably know, I like those. And I like that, I guess I'm wondering the post-implementation evaluation, is a way to communicate back to those people who brought it forward, or the community, in terms of, what was done, what it's accomplished, and just to kind of keep the conversation going. So people really feel like they can feel the impact that their advocacy in their neighborhood had. I think that'd be phenomenal as well. But so thank you. I guess I didn't have a question. I mostly have soapbox, but.
I think they've said what I wanted to say, which is just wonderful process. Thank you so much for bringing this to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to also say thank you very much. And also to second Dan's comment that as I really have enjoyed the feedback back out to communities that's been happening. So as much of that can happen is wonderful. So thank you.
Great. Seeing no, I had one quick question. The implementation of this plan at this point doesn't roll back the work that we have already begun in other projects.
Absolutely not. No, this wouldn't. So, I mean, this is essentially the process that we were following with any other location. All this does is sort of standardize our approach so that we can be sure that we treat each concern the same way.
Excellent. Thank you. Sarah, go ahead.
Can you tell us what neighborhoods or streets or areas have already followed this process in town so far?
It's just Forest Avenue at this point.
Okay, so the Webster neighborhood process was different when that happened.
Webster was, that happened sort of before. So that was a different approach. So like I said, this kind of standardizes things a little bit.
Okay, so the Webster approach was different. The Forest Ave followed this one and will follow this one going forward. So if people have ongoing concerns on any project that had previously been done, they have to wait how long before they can bring it back? And the thing it said 3 years,
People
or
should
if
just-
there were substantial changes, right? So you want to hear from people if they believe
Well, I
there's a
think,
change.
so the 3 years issue is to try to eliminate, so if a concern is brought up and we go through the process and find that either the location doesn't qualify or the data doesn't support any action, we're just trying to avoid constantly being in the process. But I encourage anybody to reach out to me, and we can, if the project is eligible to be brought through this process, I'll help shepherd them through it.
Thanks for the clarity. Appreciate it.
But there will be times that people have requests of Rob that don't meet the level of needing to go through this process. And what I want to be very clear about is we're not adding steps to an already functioning, pretty smashingly well functioning response from Public Works to citizen needs.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you.
So I do actually have a question, not just a
Sure.
speech this time. So it will be the process, the post-implementation evaluation will be done for Forest Avenue, right? Even though it.
It will.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
There's no further questions or comments. We'll take a vote on order 23-168. All those in favor? And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to order 23-169, order designating the fiscal year 23 year-end assigned fund balance. We'll take a motion.
I would like to move approval.
Second,
Second.
and Sophie, I believe this is you.
So, this item was brought forward with an understanding that there would be some discussion at this meeting. I provided a lot of background detail for you. Counselor Kenny and I work through some projections, to help you understand that, what we're looking at is approximately $700,000 that we think will be added on a budgetary basis to fund balance. I think it's important to remember, we're talking about unspent expenses, over collected revenues. We have not made all of the accrual adjustments and depreciation and things like that. So fund balance may change, not to $700,000, but on a budgetary basis, that looks like what we're looking at. So we went through, you have about $2.6 million of assigned fund balance currently. That includes, when you look at your A3, which is the sheet that takes all of the funds that we hold in reserve, it's 3.5, but you've got about $900,000 worth of tax increment financing district dollars that you cannot reassign. Those are restricted funds. So we're in this, we're looking at about $50,000 worth of interest that has not been allocated. And the question ahead of you is, the auditors are coming, and one of the things they want is the list of the assigned fund balance from council. We put a call out after the last council meeting, and I received a few, some feedback, some from council, couple of community members, and so let me just share what I have in total, and if I've missed anything, now would be a great time to bring it up. $10,000 to support community initiated improvements to Union Street boat launch. $50,000 to take up the responsibilities that come with our town name and to collaborate with the Penobscot Nation if they're interested in creating new signage about Chief Orono and or whatever other visual, written, or interactive information is deemed appropriate to honor Chief Orono and the Penobscot history ongoing presence in our town. $10,000 to revive Orono Festival Days. $25,000 donated to as the donation for Orono Economic Development Corporation for the Caribou Bog Outdoor Center. I'm not sure if this would actually look like an assigned fund or a carry forward. Either way, if you assign it, a carry forward becomes an assignment. So it's all in how I list it. $5,000 added to the trail maintenance reserve to be used as a match for the Orono Land Trust grant application. So Orono Land Trust has been doing a lot of improvements to trails out in the Caribou Bog area. And they've got one more grant to finish up their work, and they're hoping for a $5,000 match. It's up to 5,000. They're not 100% sure. In assigning it or adding it to the trails reserve, it would not, you're not suggesting any of these. You're not giving approval for them to be spent. You're creating an allocation that you can then talk about during the fiscal year. I think the only thing that's not on here that we might want to talk about is Counselor Laraway and I had a great conversation about skate parks. And what I know for sure in the limited amount of research that we've done thus far, $18,000 is not going to get us anywhere with that. And so if we're truly going to think about making a commitment, we may think about allocating some more money to that skate park reserve. And I haven't talked with you about that yet, but the information on kind of the minimums are coming in, and that's probably something that another between 15 and 25,000 would help create enough of money there. So that was kind of my thought. I haven't had a chance to talk with you about it, Counselor Laraway.
I appreciate you looking more into that since our last conversation. So what is the process here at this point? Are you suggesting, well, you're not suggesting, but you're bringing up the possibility that we would amend this order to add that initial amount in?
And I think what's important is this order doesn't say anything. That what you see here is background for you. When you have to amend the order to say as presented with the addition of whatever you want to add. If there are things you want to subtract, then we can do that too. But it is, when we do orders like this, it's a little bit on the fly because we haven't had a chance to really talk about what you want at great length. So this is, I expect we'll take a few minutes and get to a point where we can write down the changes you want to make, and then we would make that motion.
Well, I would like to suggest we add some money in for potential skate park.
Yes.
I also have talked to numerous people in town who really love the idea of having a skate park. And so I would support that as well. I would suggest maybe $20,000 toward the skate park reserve.
And I want to be clear, I am not actually a skater myself. I've just heard from many people in the community who want this. And so I'm responding to a need that I have heard, that I also think would be a great idea, a great outlet for many kids in the community, great people of all ages in the community. I know many skaters of, well, many ages.
Great. Maybe we start this conversation by just going down and hearing from all the counselors, and we could talk a little bit about those projects that you proposed or other projects that you're interested in learning more about. Councilor Marks, can we start with you?
I was interested in the skate park just to know, is there a designated location where we're already looking for that? Sophie, did you tell us something about that in the past? Can you just recap? There's not a specific location.
So we had looked at Barden Park as an area for the pump track, which I don't think would be quite as loud as the skate park. And there was considerable concern raised by the neighborhood there because we would have to cut some of the buffer in order to be able to fit it in the back. So that I would be concerned about that space. I don't know that putting it next to the school where the pump track is currently is probably not a good idea. So I think we would be on a search for where that might go. And, you know, I think we'd want to involve Rob Yerxa in terms of planning, public works, parks and recreation in terms of best practice with skate parks, but also some planning help to talk about where in town is the best location for it, because I don't think it's as simple as saying, here's a piece of land. I think you want it to be walkable. You want it to work.
And I guess I wanted to say, I did not put Orono Festival Days in here, but I'm very interested in Orono Festival Days. I think it's something I'd really like to see back. I wanted to double check with Sophie. I remember you giving us a figure when I first joined council about what it might cost to recreate it. Was it slightly over the 10,000? Do I remember 11 or 12 being thrown out, or am I remembering incorrectly? Or
I think, you know, it was 10,000. That 10,000 included a significant amount of staff overtime that I don't think the town is really positioned in a place to be able to support. We actually had some email conversation I had some email conversation with Councilor Berthasell, because she's the one that brought this up. The initial plan, and not that council can't change its plans, it always can, but the initial plan had been late this fall to bring community groups and businesses together to talk about and interested people to talk about forming an actual festival day kind of committee of people who wanted to bring it back and revive it and figure out what that would look like. I know that doing it in late August and September is really difficult for the business community because they're also positioning to welcome kids to the community. So I think that would allow for some discussion about when resources are available. when Counselor Berthasell and I chatted, one of the things about Festival Day, bringing it back, number one, it probably wouldn't happen until FY 25 because it would be next fall. And also from a funding standpoint, the thought would be that if we're going to bring Festival Day back, the town would be giving an annual contribution, whether it be its in-kind resources or cash resources. And to do it as an assignment of funds kind of makes it hard to then add to the budget. And it might make more sense to start the conversation this fall, have a much better sense of what you're looking at for the date and the scope of the event, and include that as part of the Parks and Rec budget for FY 25. So definitely not saying you shouldn't put aside money for it. It's just usually assigned funds are not used for things that will be operational.
I did put one of them on here. Do you want me to say something
Please,
about that?
yeah,
one?
that's gonna-
I did put on the item about Chief Orono and really stepping into acknowledging and celebrating both Chief Orono and the ongoing and historic Penobscot presence in Orono. I have the honor of having been going through past meetings and looking at all of the wonderful commitments and statements that council has made about really wanting to step into that over the years. And when Sophie brought this up, it made me realize that putting some money specifically earmarked for that might help us to really prioritize moving that forward. I came up with a number by adding a couple of different things. Sophie might tell me I've got some wrong, so I would love to know because I really guesstimated. So I'd appreciate Sophie's expertise there. I basically took a look at a couple different issues. One was the current welcome and gateway signage, which although there was never an intention to erase Chief Orono, the impact for many people has been that he's so hard to see that he seems gone. And that feels important to address with further conversation. So if we had to replace that or chose to replace that signage, I think you said, Sophie, that's somewhere between 12 and is 12 just the welcome signs, or does that include the wayfaring signs also?
I think 12,000 was just the welcome signs. Yes, Mitch is shaking
More,
his
so
head.
more including the wayfaring. And I figured also there might be redesign fees. So I figured if that happened, that would be in the order of 20,000 potentially. And then beyond that, there's been some great conversation about hiring Penobscot consultants and contractors, the way we've hired other DEIB contractors to work with us to create language for our website around Chief Orono, language for further real, actually in-depth historical representation and signage or exhibits somewhere in town about him. So I guesstimated another 10K based on what I've seen for other DEIB consultants who we've hired. And then if we built such an exhibit and it had art and signage and all of that stuff, I figured that might be another 20. This I came up with 50. But really those are my ballpark figures. So Sophie can speak or other people can chime in about numbers. That was what I put in. What's important to me is that we indicate our seriousness by putting some money aside into a fund that really is designated. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Let's continue down. Sonia, if you have anything else you'd like to add or talk about.
I don't. I am very interested in reviving Orono Festival Days. Could be that it makes more sense to take that up during the budget cycle than it does here, but I put it here so that we could be all noting and nodding along that we like festival days. And I also am in favor of these other appropriations as listed, including the skate park.
Thank you, Rob.
As mentioned already, the skate park amount, perhaps in the amount that Sonia recommended, the 20,000. I also am really glad to see here the amount that Councilor Marks put on around signage and honoring Chief Orono and our historic relationship with the Penobscot Nation, on whose land we continue to sit. I think that's really valuable that we dedicate some resources to that. So I'm glad to see that there, and I'm in favor of all the other things that are on here.
I think these are all great and worthy suggestions. Let me start there. Where I have an issue is I feel like we're doing an end around on the budget process. This to me feels like this, we're looking at this like we have 700,000 to spend. And this is obviously taxpayer money that we just went through I won't say grueling budget season, but we were, we were looking at lines. We were talking about 5,000 here, 6,000, 10,000 to turn around a couple months later and grab $100,000, $120,000, $130,000 for projects that we didn't vet through that process. I don't want to do it, to be very candid. Again, and this is nothing against any of these. I think these are all great projects, but this feels wrong to me. So I wanted to speak my piece. And I'm just not supportive of this. Isn't found money. It's money we didn't spend last year. It's taxpayer money. I think everything needs to go through a vetted process. Like, yes.
So, you know me well enough to know that I'm not critiquing your opinion. You're fully entitled to your opinion. But I do just want to point out that I think the OEDC request is a little different in that came up during the budget, and it's on my list because what I have for notes, and maybe I got my notes wrong, but what I had for notes was that you would consider whether to make a capital request after we were closing the books to see if we had money left at the end of the year. So that to me is me following up on you didn't say you'd give it, you said you'd consider it. But
That's fair. I mean, I recall that being a tough decision. I believe you that we said that we would reconsider it. But that was not fresh in my mind. So that maybe does qualify it a little differently. But I guess that was, again, if it was discussed, I know it was. And again, it felt like one of those kind of hard decisions that nobody really wanted to make, and we made it. We're turning back on it now because we think we have extra money. And again, there's no such thing as extra money with taxpayers' dollars. So, but I guess I would be open to that discussion because we did set it out there. Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. Dan.
So thank you. So all of these projects will end up getting a full hearing before they're approved anyway, right? We'll come in and we'll have committee meetings on them, and then we'll have a vote on the actual expenditure as well, right? In terms of our process.
yeah, staff cannot access reserve funds without a specific approval of council.
Yeah. And then will you change the draft unaudited FY23 financial statement exhibit A3? That'll be changed to reflect this. So will you have to go in using manager's discretion, please don't ask me to do it, and decide how to adjust those other balances over there?
Well, no, absolutely not.
All right.
Manager does not have that degree of discretion the way that the council works. So these are here given to you based on what happens is at the end of each fiscal year, council creates an assignment of fund balance.
Right.
That can be whatever you want, except for those top tax increment finance district program development funds. There are some reasons for having each and every one of those funds, but they were assigned at the beginning of the year with the beginning of balance that you see. What you see from there are approved expenses and revenues to each of those funds. So that's how we got to the end balance. You could decide to unassign some of those funds. You could decide to add to those funds. There is no limit. Well, I mean, you can only assign the funds we have,
Right.
but
Is this the 3.57678 million that you're talking about?
yeah,
Yep.
that is just the total of everything.
Okay.
It is not, in years when I've come to you, to council and said, here is a very specific need that I see. I always work to try to make it a net zero change in assigned fund balance. I don't have that. I did not do that this year because I do not see a specific need from a staff or operational perspective.
So there's like a line at the, just to pick on the one that's at the very top, because at the very top, $50,281 in interest on reserves.
So you
Which-
could reallocate that.
That's okay.
You
So
can
that could be the
reallocate that.
50,000 we use for the Penobscot Nation and.
Yep, or you could leave it as unallocated, as revenue, add to it throughout the year, because that's what will happen. And if a particular project is coming up, if staff is directed or the community works on a project and has a budget, then they can bring that to council and you could look at doing something at that time. I mean,
And we're making this decision now because it helps with the auditing work that you've got coming up,
it
right?
doesn't just help with it.
Yeah.
It's one of the little check the box things that the auditor expects. And
Okay.
I think in some communities, the manager just hands the A3 in the way it's always been. Here, we really have gotten into the habit of council looking at that and giving the assignment some conversation. And we can have that conversation now for next year. But what I'm looking to do is to not be so presumptuous that I understand what council wants to spend money on in the next year. And also the council raises their hand and says, this is the assigned fund balance that we are directing.
I appreciate the work that goes into it and that explanation, and that we'll have discretion on these amounts as we move forward. So if it's $6,200 to do something awesome at the basin boat, at the Union Street boat launch, it doesn't have to be the whole 10,000. I brought that one in as a response to, and I know that other counselors had an interest in that as well. Based on the work we're doing with the community down there to get a project off the ground. And I like how this is a down payment's not the right metaphor, but I like how this, puts us on the record. These are things that we care enough about to assign funds to. And, some of these things will likely need to go into the ongoing budget, and that'll be part of the conversation as well. And I wanted to thank Councilor Marks in particular for the work she's done with the Penobscot Nation and going through the prior council meetings. I've watched one that was pretty compelling in terms of the conversation that happened. And I know this has been a lot of work for her, and I think it's an important initiative. So thank you.
Thanks. Matt.
I want to also reiterate that I think it's important for us in this particular community, at least that we find it important enough to not just say platitudes when it comes to the Wabanaki people, but to actually be able to say, budgeting is the thing that we are. And so that is something that I do find it, if we budget for it, that is who we are. If we don't put funds into it and we just say things, then that's not who we are. It's just more words. And so all of these I think are good. I also appreciate Leo making sure that we are not fiscally irresponsible. So thank you all.
Can I ask just clarification on, Dan said, each of these will get a full hearing. My hunch is each of these will come back for approval on a final dollar, but I mean, where?
So when you put something in assigned fund balance for a council project, staff has to understand what council wants out of that project. So for example, you talk about a citizen initiated improvements to the Union Street boat launch. I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what the scope is. I have no idea what it's going to look like. We are going to have to go through a process of likely asking for permission from the state to do some different things. So what ends up happening is you end up having to create what the project is, and then staff comes along and tries to give you a budget for that. And then it gets created as a budget within the reserve account. That you would appropriate the budget for it. So you say, we're looking at $50,000 for cultural heritage projects. That creates a fund, a reserve fund that shows up as part of the assigned fund balance. But that doesn't do anything until that then goes on the list of the projects and the priorities for council to make its way through. You figure out in general what that's going to look like, how you want to deal with that. If it's a staff project, it then gets assigned to the appropriate staff department to give whatever framework you need to be able to move the work forward. That project then would have to come back to committee and get some level of vetting. It has to then come back to council to be awarded a budget for that project. And then it would be specific approvals for expenses based on the project. Anything over, the thresholds we already have.
Gotcha. Thank you. Just.
Does that help?
Yep, that's helpful. Thank you very much. One quick other question, Jeff, before you jump in, if you don't mind. So there's 700,000. If we allocate 150,000, we're down to 650. What happens to that 650, or what happens to the 700 if we don't allocate it?
So remember, I talked about a budgetary basis that can get eaten up in different ways during the audit process through accruals, depreciation, the way you book, the way we book things as we finalize the audit. But ultimately, when you look at, I'm going to have it wrong. I think it's statement 3, maybe statement 2, statement 3 in the audit. It walks you through the budgetary basis and then the accruals that will balance out to fund balance. So this would all lapse. Any amount of this money that is actually new will lapse to fund balance at the end of the time. So right now we have a little over $4 million in fund balance. That is not all cash dollars, just so you're aware. But most of it is. That will go up or down based on our end of year budgetary basis.
And we don't ever use that. Or wait, what did we use? How much did we use from that for revenue this year from the?
So we budgeted $300,000 from unassigned fund balance. So that becomes part of your assignment of funds in the audit each year. We don't carry it on the A3. It goes with the carry forwards as an assignment of fund balance. If you look at the end of exhibit A3 that's printed in the audit. So at the end of each fiscal year, we assign whatever the following year FY budget is going to use. So we will assign the $300,000.
Thanks.
Am I answering your questions? Okay. I like that.
Okay, I have a much more general comment than Leo's, and that is, I really appreciate the time and thought that people put into presenting all of these proposals. One of the things that in my time on town council that people have continued to talk about is the Orono Festival Days, and in a way, I think that's so valuable to the community that it should be taken out of this one-time thing and put into the permanent Parks and Rec budget. That would be really my only amendment here. And I also appreciate the conversation that Dan and Leo have spurred about how each of these gets scrutiny before it's expended. So I'm more comfortable approving these with that adjustment to the Festival Days thing. With the understanding that we'll be diligent in our vetting of these projects, and I want to provide the community with as much flexibility as possible to do the things that improve our community where we have the greatest impact. So those are my only general comments here. So, yeah, go ahead. Oh,
Great.
sorry.
I'll just respond and say that sounds great to me, and I would love to make a commitment to Orono Festival Days during the budget. So happy to strike it here if others feel fine with that too.
We're not gonna put it in the budget tonight though, right?
Correct.
Could
We
we just-
can't put anything in the budget tonight, but the timeline for Orono Festival Days is such that we wouldn't be spending this money until next fiscal year anyway, probably.
Mhm.
So rather than appropriate money here for a one-time thing, the idea is let's talk about it during the budget cycle, make a commitment to it during the budget cycle, and then it can be an ongoing item that's in the budget. And I like that proposal.
I'm in on that, although timing wise, I definitely want us to get Orono Festival Days back. But timing wise, we probably have to do it this year rather than waiting, like be planning for it this year, I think, maybe, because budget is,
We can't spend the budget money until next June,
No,
next
but we-
July.
but
So,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
there's maybe the stuff that has to go into it, probably start looking at that this year. I'm guessing before we even start the budget. Is that
So
accurate?
I'm thinking that we're probably looking at a later festival day than we've had in the past. So businesses and the community work in June on Artsapalooza, so that takes effort. July and August, the feedback we've had is that people don't want to do big community things. September, we've heard from the business community, is the beginning of September is not an ideal time. When it comes to when it comes to kind of planning festival day, my hunch is you're going to be in late September, early October before you're looking to have festival day. If that's the case, the purchases that will have to be made before the next fiscal year, July 1, probably going to be kind of minimal. And we have money in our economic development budget to manage events, especially ones that are related to businesses. So when you think ahead, things like banners or flags or things like that are all things that could come out of the economic development budget. We have a little bit of money in Parks and Rec. And if worse came to worse, and there was something we absolutely needed, my hunch is that a town manager worth her salt could look at the A3 and come back to you and say, perhaps we could reallocate this amount of the A3 to a new fund to at least get us through. So what I've heard loud and clear is that council would like the town to work at trying to kickstart a revival of Festival Day. And I think it would be, I would think, in our best interests to not pin down what that's going to look like or how it's going to be until we can actually meet with people who are going to roll up their sleeves and help it happen. And then really pay attention to what they want and what they're interested in rolling up their sleeves to make happen. And from that, the budget and the needs will kind of make themselves known. That's my thought. I'm not sticking to it, but it's my thought.
Thank you.
So should we propose that we approve this order as presented with the addition of $20,000 for the skate park and a subtraction of 10,000 for festival days?
I would second that motion.
Nancy, do we need to have a vote on the amendment to the motion?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Can you clarify that again?
So the motion is to accept the order as presented with the addition of $20,000 dedicated to a state park and the subtraction of $10,000 dedicated to Orono Festival Days.
Can I just run you through those numbers so they're very clear and on the record?
Yes.
So what you're suggesting. So Val clearly isn't here to yell at me for not using my microphone, but what you're suggesting is to accept the A3 as presented with the addition of $10,000 for a community initiative improvements to Union Street boat launch, which I will tell you will need to get shortened down to 2 or 3 words, and I will wordsmith that if it's okay with you. $50,000 for a Cultural Heritage Awareness Fund. Does that? Oh, you want Penobscot? Okay, so we'll, something with Penobscot Nation. $25,000 for OEDC's capital donation to OEDC's capital campaign. An additional $5,000 to the trail maintenance reserve to be used for a match for a potential Orono Land Trust grant, and then $20,000 for the addition to the skate park, the existing skate park. That, I think I just captured what you said.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good. So do we have a motion and a second on that amendment, Nancy? No.
We only have the original motions.
So a motion on the amendment.
Okay, I would like to move approval of the amendment as just rattled off by Sophie.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on the amendment?
Yes, if I assume the 20,000 that the town would put in isn't commingled, maybe isn't the right word, but there's like 18,000 that is designated, can't be used for anything else. If we put 20,000 in and it doesn't happen, that 20,000 can come back out, I assume.
It sure can. And what we do is Bob Bass, who is our fearless protector of the reserve funds, will make a note so that there is no question about that in the future.
Thanks.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? 1 opposed, 6 in favor, amendment passes. Now, voting on the amended order. All those in favor of amended order 23-169. All those in favor? Opposed? 6 in favor, 1 opposed, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, sure. Order 23-170, order authorizing the town manager to accept and expend up to $3,031.20 of Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant funds as a subrecipient from the town of VZ for the purchase of police officer badges and items to support training such as cardboard targets, training tourniquets, hard cases for training equipment storage, and training holsters. Unused funds less than $100 will be turned over to the Region 5 to support area training. Need a motion
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Thank you. Sophie, is this you?
Yep. So Chief Merrill couldn't be with us today, but as many counselors are aware, each year the Justice Assistance Burn JAG grant program allocates funds for each region. In our case, it's our county, based upon various factors that have to do with your uniform crime reporting data. This year, the town of Orono's number is that $3,000 that council chair just read off. So they have a list of allowed items. Those items are supposed to supplement and not supplant what we do. One of the expenses is the uniform expenses actually changing over from patrolman badges to officer badges, which is actually quite expensive, and we've been trying to do one at a time. We've had a significant influx of people, and we'd like to get that taken care of in one fell swoop. Cardboard cue targets for the range. We've spent a lot of time trying to not only do the qualifying that the state requires us to do, but also work in our defensive tactics and use of force scenarios to try to train people to be more aware of their surroundings and how to use that toolkit of force. That would be a helpful thing. And 7 CAT T tourniquets for training scenarios. Evidently, if we use a training, one of our CAT T tourniquets that officers wear, we have to throw it away or not be able to use it. These training ones are a little cheaper, still more than we normally would fund. So that is what we've come up with for the burn jag money for this year.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments on this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll vote on order 23-170. All those in favor? All those opposed? 5 in favor, 2 opposed, motion passes. Order 23-171, order authorizing the town manager to pay the city of Auburn $45,833 for the Maine Criminal Justice Academy Basic Law Enforcement Training Program costs for Shane Clement as statutorily mandated. We'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
I think you're working off an old,
Oh, I may. I'm working partially off my electronic copy and partially.
yeah, because I removed the officer's name.
You did.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. That's all right. I'm sorry.
So do we have to amend the motion or, okay. So we have in front of us order 23-171. Can you explain the context of that, Sophie?
Do we have a motion in a second on
We
that
do.
one? Okay, so as council is aware, staff has been in front of council before talking about the woes in trying to hire trained law enforcement officers. The good news is that we have an officer that applied and went through a pretty rigorous background, who had been through the Maine Criminal Justice Basic Law Enforcement Training Program. The city of Auburn had funded that person going through the academy. So in accordance with state law, when that happens and an individual graduates from the academy through one community paying for that time, the statute requires that for the next 5 years, any municipality that hires that individual is responsible for reimbursing the last community that's paid for them. So in this case, this individual had just completed the Criminal Justice Academy. City of Auburn was the person that sponsored them. We are required to pay them the full amount, which is established by the Criminal Justice Academy. It's not a number that the city of Auburn comes up with. The academy establishes it from time to time, and in year 1, you have to pay the full amount, which is right now $45,833. Every year after graduation, the anniversary of graduation, that will go down by 20% until in year 6, it's 0. That means if this individual stayed with us for a year and left, the town of Orono would then be the recipient that has paid, and we would be reimbursed those funds. It doesn't work if we have an individual that leaves law enforcement or law enforcement in Maine. This doesn't go to outside the state of Maine, and it doesn't matter if they become like a used car salesman, and that has happened. So
Any other discussion or any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a vote on order 23-171. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. Order 23-172, order appointing Gabriel Frey and Danielle Gabrielli to the Council Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee to fill unexpired terms until April of 2026. Need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Sophie or Sonia? Sure.
Sure, I'd be happy to just let my fellow counselors know that these 2 names were put forward by the existing sitting DEIB committee as members, people who had either applied to the town's process or shown up to a DEIB committee meeting and expressed interest in joining. And so these two people were recommended for addition to the committee and brought to council accordingly.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of order 23-172? And it passes unanimously with our thanks. Order 23-173, order authorizing the town manager to enter into a planning contract agreement with Isabel, I'm going to mispronounce the name, O'Shelley, doing business as IOV Community Planning and Consulting from 9/2023 through February 28th, 2024, with funds drawn from the fiscal year 24 municipal operating budget. We'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
Second. Motion and second. So Sophie.
So as the council chair recognized earlier this evening, our town planner has given notice and will be moving to a different community. Knowing how long it takes to find planner, knowing that our needs at this moment in time are quite technical. I worked with Mitch Stone, who oversees planning, to find Isabel, who comes highly recommended from many communities in southern Maine where she works, but she actually grew up in Old Town, so she is aware of our area. And she comes highly recommended and happens to be at a point in her contract cycles to be able to bring us on for the next few months for us, number one, to see what we might be able to do with a contract planner, to see if it works to have a contract planner that is further away, which is where you're probably going to find contract planners, and evaluate what process we want to use in the future. I don't think that she is adverse to coming on potentially full-time if that's what we want. What I wanted at this point was an interim contract to allow us to evaluate without interrupting the work we've done. I want to be really clear that the contract you have in front of you does not include any work on a comprehensive plan that is in our work plan. And that is simply because we would have to enter into a separate contract. She does not bill comp plans on an hourly basis. It would be a project basis. So we would be looking at that a little differently. The reason that you don't see dollar amounts in here, number one, it can be handled within the existing budget. But most importantly, this is an hourly contract. It's $60 an hour for the time that she works, plus the expenses that she incurs. Those expenses are limited in the contract to her mileage and actual out-of-pocket expense for things that we agree to. So this is most definitely a step down in the level of service that we'll have in planning. She will come one day a month to be on site, and that will be the day that we have the planning board. So I would not expect to see her here for any of our council committee meetings that would all be done on Zoom and things like that. We probably will slow down the council work and allow her to really focus on planning board work. And what we've said is the contract is $60 an hour up to 20 hours a week. If we're going to go over 20 hours a week, Mitch and I would have to agree to that. So when we look at the budget, we can withstand that within the budget. I think the thought is we'll try it. The upcoming planning board meeting, there's not enough time to bring her up to speed. So we've made arrangements for the town attorney to support the planning board next week. But then we hope to have her on board if you agree to the contract.
Thank you. Questions?
question and comment. This seems like a really good bridge to get us and evaluate the whole thing. So I think it's great. The only thing I didn't see, I looked in the agreement and didn't see that we had anywhere where it said, my question was, what's the expectation? What's the commitment? What's the not to exceed? And I didn't see that in the agreement.
So I think, at least I saw in the agreement, I may have dreamed it, but I think I saw up to 20 hours.
20 hours?
Yeah, and then there's the scope of work, which was
I
separate.
saw that.
But what you'll notice on there, what we're saying is as a definite, the first priority is vetting planning board projects, and preparing for that effort. If it is, let me just see. I would say that the way the budget is, it's up to 20 hours unless, I thought we. So what I will do instead of taking a ton of time here, because if it's not here, it is purely an oversight. We will note that that is what we're agreeing to, and it's up to 20 hours a week unless written approval from the town. And understand that written approval can be an email.
Yeah.
But I'll add that to A.
Thank you. Yeah. And it really is more about just knowing what expectations are, because
Yep.
at the end of the day, if we need 30 and she can do 30, we're lucky. So
Yeah.
I get that, but
Yep.
I just didn't notice it in there. So thank you.
Yep.
Great. Dan,
Yeah, I agree with Leo. It sounds like a really good bridge and appreciate you bringing it forward. Is it just a technical question about our finance ordinance? Is this considered a sole source procurement given, or how does it get?
So, I guess it could be a sole source procurement, it could be, an emergency procurement. But more to the point, her contract isn't for a set price. It is, what we're agreeing to is to pay $60 an hour. And it is, I think if you tallied that out at 20 hours, you're still in like $20,700 thereabouts, which is under the sole source.
Which is
But-
what, under the sole source amount?
You have 25 there, but I would also, we have historically not used that for hourly contracts because if there were no projects before the planning board, we might not use her at all, which is part of the reason why I really want to evaluate for several months what the work of planners are and what we can pick up internally, or what, quite frankly, the council doesn't feel they need, perhaps, that we've used planners for. Finding planners in northern Maine is not an easy thing to do.
Thank you.
other questions? All right, seeing none, let's take a vote on order 23-173. All those in favor? And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Order 23-174, order designating Orono's official voting delegate and alternate to the Maine Municipal Association Annual Business Meeting to be held Wednesday, October 4th, 2023. We'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
So each year, the Maine Municipal Association, during their annual convention, holds a business meeting. I'm not exactly sure what's on the agenda for that business meeting yet, but in order to actually vote as a member at the business meeting, we have to formally appoint people. Usually there's conversation around who's going, are you going to be there? And whoever's going kind of gets nominated for that. And then usually the town manager serves as the alternate just because most of the time the town manager's there. This isn't like casting a wild and crazy vote for something. They haven't even listed anything that there will be an official vote. So it might just be to open the meeting and close the meeting. But we have to have a delegate.
Sophie, can you remind us who the counselor was that did this last year?
Most all the time it's Tom Perry. It had been Tom Perry. There was food served. Of course, Tom
Oh.
went.
Do you think he's busy on the 4th this year?
So do we have anybody on council who is available and would like to attend?
Is it an all-day event?
So it's a 2-day event.
Nope.
That, but all you have to be at would be the business meeting. But it's usually right after lunch and they serve a nice lunch and we would probably sign you up for the day. The other thing you could do is, it's in Bangor. So, yeah,
It's in Augusta this year, I think.
I thought
Let me check. I'm on the agenda right now, but. Yeah, it's a Augusta Civic Center. It was in Bangor last year.
so it's in Augusta.
Well, I cannot attend, so I would love for somebody to attend. I think it's important that we have a representative there.
I can attend and I'll be I don't need to be if someone else prefers to do it, but I'm happy to go if.
Go for it, Dan. I was about to say similarly, but you might be in Augusta anyway, so go for it.
Okay. So do we need to amend this with Counselor? Okay, we do not need to amend it. We'll just know that Counselor Demerit is our voting delegate and can Sophie Wilson remain our alternate? Are you?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I plan to go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So with that understanding, let's, can we have a vote on order 23-174? All those in favor? And it is unanimous. Thank you. Order 23-175, order approving the purchase of WPCF garage door operators for the Headworks building from PDQ Door of Hamden in an amount not to exceed $5,817 to be drawn from the approved fiscal year 24 WPCF capital budget, capital facilities reserve. And we need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and several seconds. And Chris, thank you.
Yes, evening folks, Chris Pearl, WPCF. This is just a basic equipment replacement. These operators, they operate the doors to the Headworks facility. They were installed new in '08. The Headworks is there's open tanks and channels within the facility, so it's a very wet environment. One of them has failed due to corrosion. Not only is wet, there's a lot of sulfides in that building. Not a lot, but they're always present. So the one next to it, it's the same age. It shows signs of corrosion, although it still does work. Just makes sense to replace them both. And I did ask for these quotes, for these proposals to be NEMA 4 rated. The ones we have now are not. NEMA 4 is, it's electrical rated for, they can be outdoors. They're sealed. We should get a lot more longevity out of them. As you can see, we had three quotes, the lowest being PDQ at $58.17 for both operators. And that also includes new push buttons, photo cell eyes for the, so the door won't go back up if something gets underneath it, safety. Though all of those components have the same corrosion. Not only is the building wet, the particular room they're in, staff is in there with a wash down hose daily. So it's just always wet.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments?
Chris should run all of our procurement processes, given the success he has bringing in low bids, so.
It seems like a reasonable and necessary request. So all those in favor? And that passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to order 23-176, order authorizing the town manager to accept and expend, if awarded, a grant from the Maine Municipal Association Risk Reduction Program of up to $3,000 for the purchase of 3 handheld Seek thermal imagers. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
All right, I think it's on. Deputy Chief Kevin Serwa for the Orono Fire Department. I am here with the discussion of the order as far as looking into the risk reduction grant process through Maine Municipal Association to purchase the 3 handheld seat cameras. So the thermal imagers, I'm sure that you've probably seen those, or you've know what those are. We use those as fire apparatus to be able to see through smoke when we're in building fires. They can be used also on hazardous material incidences to be able to see the level of fluid in a container. So there's multiple uses for it. We have 3 aging thermal imagers, and they are quite big and bulky. The older technology now they've come in much smaller sizes. So we're looking at trying to find something that we can purchase that is feasible and also fiscally responsible. These seat cameras are very affordable. As far as from years ago, we spent, I think, $22,000 on our first thermal imager. These are more of a handheld, smaller, much easier to control in the environments that we're in. They're approximately just under $1,000 a piece. So we're looking to get 3 of those. That way our individuals, our firefighters can actually have them attached to them. And we don't have to worry about who has the camera, where right now we only have 3. So this would pretty much put a thermal imager in every firefighter's hands when they're in the process of structural firefighting or searching for victims. Sophie actually got a chance to see it. We had one in here taking a look at it while we were going through this process of seeing what we could, what the need was and putting in for this grant. So take any questions if you have them.
Questions? Yeah, no questions or concerns. We'll entertain a vote. All those in favor of order 23-176. And it passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Order 23-177, order approving carrying forward $14,791 from the fiscal year 23 budget to the fiscal year 24 municipal operating budget as follows. $5,040 previously approved purchase of the automated external defibrillators for town-owned buildings, matching $4,000 in donated funds, and $9,751 to fire department for Knox and Med box security. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moving a second. Sophie, is this you or?
This is
yeah.
me. I mean, it sounds like it should be Kevin, but I think I'll try unless you get really technical. So this is simply an order asking for a carry forward of the FY23 unexpended funds into the FY24 budget. This was part of the calculation of the budgeted year-end balance. If you recall, I included this. So the first one is back in 2022, which was a long time ago. We were approved by council to order AEDs for town-owned buildings. So the library, the town office, the public works department, and public safety, along with pools. So the one for the pool was gonna flop between pool and Keith Anderson, likely. And Birch Street School, I think. Did I get it all, Mitch? And this was a $9,000 purchase, but the Robert O. St. Louis Memorial Fund donated $4,000. So that $4,000 has been sitting on the books. We ordered the AEDs and it has taken 18 months to get them. And they just kind of showed up. So in 22, we dutifully carried the money forward into 23, and then we dutifully lost track of those funds in terms of we let them lapse again. So they should have been picked up in our initial carry forward request. They were not. So that's why we're coming back to you today. This is the last day I can ask for carry forwards. So that is the first one, and the $9,751 carry forward This is, we will get into it at great length in order 2378. But essentially, it is a problem that we were trying to fix that we identified in late winter of 22. And we have been trying to fix with systems and inexpensive processes. And what we've discovered is it's not working. We've had 3 failures. And so what I know is that the fire department does not have enough money in their approved budget to absorb this. And I would ask that we consider moving the money forward so that I have money to be able to purchase these boxes. Now, carrying forward the money is not approving the purchase. That will come in the next order. But it seemed kind of like foolish to ask you to approve and then have money. I kind of did it the other way.
Great. Thank you. So questions about either of these items? I know we've talked about AEDs before and some of the other issues. Okay. Well, seeing no questions or comments from council, let's take a vote on order 23-177, bring forward $14,791 from the FY23 budget. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to order 23-178, order authorizing town manager to purchase 4 Knox box key retention systems and 2 medication vaults for emergency apparatus from the Knox Company of Phoenix, Arizona, in an amount of up to $9,751 to be drawn from the approved fiscal year 24 municipal operating budget. We need a motion, please.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and second. Kevin.
All right. Once again, Deputy Chief Kevin Sewer, Orono Fire Department. So the staff is coming to you again with what Sophie had indicated initially on the order prior to. Staff has identified 2 high-risk areas. Knox box keys is one of them, security and retention of those keys. The Knox boxes that you see on the buildings allow us access into businesses and other buildings so that we do not have to replace doors if we have to gain access. So it's a quick process that we can use a key that the only person that has it is the Orono Fire Department. And then we can gain the keys from the building owner to be able to then get into the building. So that's what the little black Knox boxes that you see on the buildings. So one of the identifications that we had was our Knox box security key, the actual key, securing them into a commercial box that we had, which is like a key code, was not secure as we thought they were. One being that they also break very easily. We did have a situation where we couldn't get into that box, and then we couldn't get into a building. Once we got back to the station, we finally got into that box with a few simple tools, and we found that box is not as secure. So that is a real big concern, and also evaluating who is using that key. That key code is used by the fire department, but we don't have a way to actually monitor who is using the key and when it's being accessed. So this program that we're looking into has a cloud-based system, so we can actually see who's accessing the key. And the other piece to that is also medication security. So we have medications that have to be locked up for regulatory purposes. So we also have an issue with that as far as we can lock those medications, but we can't secure them in a way that we know who is accessing them other than the code that we have that our members all have. So it is definitely, this process is the maximum security level that we can provide for our firefighters and paramedics, but also to the community. If for some reason that key for the Knox box had gone missing and we couldn't find it, then we would actually have to rekey every single box in the town. It's about $52 per box. So in the grand scheme of things, this is probably more of a cost saving measures, but also a security measure that I'd like to see see us do.
So the only thing I would add to that is having the Knox keys show, it makes it very clear when it's not there and somebody will pick up on it a lot quicker, which is if you looked at the pictures provided to you, the keys slide in and are locked. So you can see the keys sitting there, but you can't get them out unless you have the code to punch in. Everybody gets their own code, so we know who last pulled a key. I think, we try not to spend a lot of time talking about what is on the ambulance. But as you can imagine, there are medications that have to be locked up. There are also significantly high-risk medications for self-medicating and other things. And so, not that I think that we have an issue with that at all. Maine EMS is really wanting us to be able to identify who is getting into that box. So if we are missing anything, there is a very clear chain of command on who has been looking at that box and getting into it.
That is correct. And last year we did, like Sophie said, we tried to take measures to secure it better. But unfortunately, even after implementing those security measures, the engineering controls just were not up to par where we need to be.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from council? Seems pretty clear. If there are none, let's take a vote on order 23-178. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Lest you thought we were done, we added two orders. Order 23-179, order authorizing the town manager to pay the Orono Economic Development Corporation a dedicated donation of $9,500 for the Caribou Bog Outdoor Center with funds drawn from the approved fiscal year 24 Parks and Recreation Department operating budget. And we need a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
A motion and a second. Sophie?
So this normally wouldn't be an issue. You talked about it very explicitly during the budget that you wanted to give an annual contribution of $9,500. If they had been in a cash flow position to be able to ask for that quarterly or even in two pieces, two payments, we wouldn't be back here, but they asked for it as one payment of $9,500. So I need permission to be able to expend the funds.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 23-180, order appointing Councilor Rob Laraway to Chair of the Council Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
And
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. So I'm going to step in, but Sophie, please correct me if I'm wrong. It has been the practice of the council to fill committee chair positions in the event of a longstanding absence. This is a position that has been absent since Councilor Robertson stepped down from council. It does not actually require a vote of committee, but a vote of council, but I really think that it is an important committee, has significant function in our town, and I really want us to demonstrate that the council really appreciates the service that Councilor Laraway is willing to do, and we support the mission of this committee as well. So that's my spiel about it. Anyway, did I miss anything? No, thanks. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of appointing Rob Laraway? It is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Congratulations,
Rob,
Councilor Laraway.
Rob, for serving.
Can I just interrupt for a
Yes.
moment? The one thing I just want to make sure we're still on the same page for is that when it was first put together and instituted, the comp plan implementation committee was really focused on here are the goals in the comp plan and how do we get those accomplished. Then as we started to get through some of those goals, it became very apparent that the individuals who were passionate about comp plan implementation were also the same individuals that were passionate about land use, which is why we have been putting all of the land use ordinances through, or discussions about the land use through comp plan implementation. And my plan would be to continue doing that unless there was an issue brought up.
No, I think that's great.
Thank you. Future agenda items of concern. All right. Nothing from council. Oh, yes, sir.
This isn't future for the next meeting. This is just looking at our executive session order. And I guess should I bring that up when we get there?
Well, I ask a question. Maybe we can.
I just wanted to ask if we could add like multiple discussions of personnel matters, because in light of the comment made by a public member about the FOA earlier, I wanted to be sure we were able to talk in executive session about where we're at on that personnel matter, which I think is a different one than what's currently listed here. So I guess that requires a unanimous vote of council. If we wanted to do that, maybe it comes brought up later. I'm just asking now because
I think we would need an agenda adjustment to do that. And maybe we can entertain that now. Is it procedurally appropriate to entertain that now, or? Yeah. So, I do not know the section off the top of my head to talk about that, but we could move.
I believe it would be the same legal citation. And so we would just have two of them.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So if we have a motion pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 4056A, for discussion related to a personnel matter in this executive session, dedicated to the issue that came up in public comment earlier. Is that how we?
Yeah, I guess I'm just confused because it doesn't quite seem appropriate to do it now, but.
Yeah, well, that was,
wait and do it. I wasn't sure. I just wanted to ask in case I don't miss my window. I was assuming probably it comes later at number 15 or 13,
Well,
whatever that is.
no, my question,
Hasn't been
Sarah,
advertised and
is that I think it's appropriate to do it at the next. I don't think we can add a significant issue like that without having background done and stuff like that at this point. It's not that I want to stifle discussion, it's that I want to make sure that, for example, if a personal matter is being discussed, that person has the right to be present. I'm not sure if that's the case, if that person is no longer an employee of the town, but I'm not comfortable making that decision.
Okay.
So that's where.
Can we then amend it to talk about a legal matter, since the settlement is now a legal matter and we all have access to that? We've been.
The legal matter doesn't require discussion in executive session. However, the legal matter is what it is. There was a settlement that was agreed upon by the party and the town's insurance company and the town.
But I mean, we told a member of the public tonight that we couldn't talk about it in public.
Right.
So what is it going to be?
We told that person that all of the materials that can be disclosed in public will be shared.
But we also said the town council couldn't talk about it.
We cannot offer our opinion on. We are precluded by the constraints of that settlement from discussing that settlement, right? We're not. So I don't know what, I mean, I guess I don't know what you want to talk about, not you. I don't know what we want to talk about. And I don't want to prevent discussion.
Right.
I just want to respect the rights of the person who would, if they were still employed, have the right to be here while that discussion occurs. I want to protect the rights of the public who would have been noticed that a discussion of this nature was going to take place.
Right.
Right. So how do we ensure that everybody's rights are being upheld?
And I don't mean to back you in a corner. I apologize. if
Yeah,
that's
no,
what came across.
I'm not defending a position that we don't talk about it, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm really procedurally trying to do the right thing.
No, I know, I understand.
And I'll make it really simple. To discuss a legal matter in executive session, you must have the town attorney present, whether it's by telephone, Zoom, or in person. That it is discussion with the town, consultation with the town attorney around a legal matter. So it's not just because it's a legal matter. Secondly, I think you'd want some legal advice as to whether or not the town council, I think the specific questions that you would, or items that you would want to discuss would need to be laid out, and people would need to understand when it comes to a personnel matter, because there are some things that council is allowed to talk about and some things that it's not allowed to talk about. And so I think you'd want to understand kind of what the breadth of that conversation was going to be, and how, what information you needed to navigate it, if it was a personnel matter or a legal matter, and prepare for it.
Well, maybe an alternative would be, I've discussed previously, desire to get into the code about what council's approval for settlements of any funds. And I know we've talked about doing that in October. Perhaps the approach would be to ask the town's attorney to join us at the start of the October meeting, work with us on crafting that ordinance for the October meeting, but we could go into executive session prior to the start of the meeting or sometime early in the meeting, have that conversation so we fully understand, because we have questions that we haven't been able to talk about, as a council about that settlement. It's now becoming something that the public is aware of. And I think could make sense for us to bring the attorney in, do the executive session at the start of the meeting in October, and then we can address the ordinance issue that I've talked about wanting to do, and I think others want to do as well.
I think it's a great plan. And I
Okay.
think in the context, I think we can, when we talk about internal controls and in the other.
Absolutely.
ways we do it. So
That sounds great. I just
Okay.
would like time for us to speak about it as a council. Thank you.
Okay. Any other future agenda items of concern? Okay. Public petitions. Seeing one second in. Okay, we have public comment. This is our last opportunity for public comment in this meeting. Let's make sure that public comment is new comment, that is not, that it's new comment, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lapointe.
Thank you. You guys, my gosh, what a nice change. I really like your agenda. This looks good, clean. Get a chance to talk several times. Really, I think that this reflects the way it should be. My petitions are: one, please review the fine, the 043, which is in your file. It has to do with a fine for LaPointe's, and you collect $100 a month. That was the deal. And about half of it's paid off, but yet it's never been distributed properly. As to how to distribute that, I can use some help, please, because it does go back, and it has to do with the law firm Russell or Uber, that your town attorney now works for them. That's something that we have to enter into discussion, please, and find out how to deal with that. It's a right thing to do, and that came out of it. I'm not looking for an answer on that. I'm just saying, alerting you to this fact. The second thing is the LAI permit, the LaPointe Enterprises, Inc., and that's how it's stated, permit number 2. Last year, when I went to get it, I had some pushback. I don't think that's an appropriate place to be. I talked to the town clerk and she got me a nice stamp and said, here it is. This is official. And I said, thank you very much. But before she stood up and said, that's public information, I might not have had received that. You've got a great town clerk, by the way. You guys are just so fortunate. The third thing, now I'm not really sure if this is a petition. I think this isn't still under petition. I was shocked to find that plans within plans have been going on the future, and that having to do with LaPointe Enterprises Inc. and the business. I have no knowledge of this. I am out of the picture, okay? I have no notice, and therein lies my difficulty. I would like to have access to that and find out what's going on. I have something I need to say. I'm in the discovery in a court case. That one is 2023 117. I think that's BANDC CIV. And that has to do with it's injunctive and relief, but I am in discoveries for the next 45 days. So I would really appreciate having that information. Otherwise, I have to say, you guys are doing a great job. I really appreciate how you guys, I present something to the council that maybe always isn't convenient, but I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment or any comment online?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Yeah, before we,
Yes.
sorry, the strategic meeting, the school, the chili and the strategic planning and I love both. For the school board, for the schools, just next Monday, have we agreed as a council?
I think we sort of tentatively agreed to begin our meeting at 4:30, correct?
Okay.
So we're going to we amend our schedule to begin our meeting at 4:30 with the idea that we'll be out of here in time to participate in the RSU 26 meeting for those who want to.
We can get the school board chair to save us some chili. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. So our next item is executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA section 45(6)A for discussion related to a personnel matter. We'll have to clear the room, shut off the recording for that. We will return after that, not for council action, but for a workshop on council policies and procedures.
Jeff, can I ask about the no action clause? I don't know enough about this matter to have any opinion yet on whether we might or might not take a vote on anything coming out. So I don't really feel comfortable saying that we wouldn't, and I feel like staff are here anyway, waiting for a workshop, so we're not inconveniencing people. Is that simply standard practice, or?
It's standard language. We don't have to include that language in our
I would
conversation.
not feel comfortable with that until I know more
Fine.
about this matter.
Okay, so we'll move to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA section 405(6)A, discussions related to a personnel matter. Scheduled to return for a workshop afterwards, but we'll see. We need a motion, please. We'll see.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor of executive session? Thank you. It's unanimous. Take a minute break.